Good Saturday, everyone. Pay no attention to the voices in the distance. If you're hearing some screeching over the horizon, that is probably the Turks, still seething about the fact that today is the 3204th anniversary of the fall of Troy. This could have also been a very good day to be the fall of Tyrannical. Unfortunately, we are not living in this timeline. Tyrannical is still alive and well, which is what we're going to have to talk about today. We're going to have to do some brainstorming to figure out some possible solutions to this issue, because it is an issue and it has been an issue for a while now. People simply flee whenever it's a Tyrannical week. The amount of participation in Mythic Plus when it's Tyrannical is lower than Fortified, over 30% lower in certain weeks. Like this one, much lower, even closer to 50% less. This is the week, of course, if you have been missing Mythic Plus, this is the week where Tyrannical, Necrotic, and Bolstering are together. And I wanted to frame the problem by showing you this. This is Ellesmere. This is the #1 healer in the world in Mythic Plus when it comes to pushing high keys. Him and the rest of his team, so Nerf Meta, the Vengeance tank, Hefty Jags, the Balance Druid, JPC, the Rogue, and Azuna, the Mage, they're basically have the same rank, #1 pretty much almost everywhere, with their key pushing. Now, the interesting thing is that when you look at their keys, you start, for example, in Sanguine Depths and you see a swarm of blue. And then you go and look at Spires of Ascension and it's more blue, and you look at the other side and it's more blue. There is very little brown. Brown that represents Tyrannical. Most of the keys are going to be cleared in Fortified weeks. And the even cuter thing is that it looks like this. When you have the keys for Fortified, it's 26, 20, 27, 25. Hey look, Tyrannical key, 15. And you go down, 26, 26, 25, 23, 24. Hey look, another Tyrannical key. This one is a 23, depleted. Maybe let's look at an easy key. Maybe there's going to be more Tyrannical keys in Mists, right? It's nothing but Fortified. There is one Tyrannical and it's a 17. You scroll down, 23, 22, 22, 23. There is 3 Tyrannicals, 17, 15, 16. You know, this is the #1 team in the world for pushing high keys that cleared over 160 keys at +20 difficulty, and only 5 were in Tyrannical. Not only that, but 4 out of 5 are in Necrotic Wake. Now, when even the best team in the world, when it comes to pushing high keys, flees and avoids Tyrannical like the plague, there is a problem. Of course, you can understand their mentality. A +27 is a +27. You're not getting more points if you do it in Tyrannical. So if you know that you can only push these new records during a Fortified key, you have absolutely no reason to do it on Tyrannical. This team is obviously capable of clearing 23s and 24s or 22s, depending on the affix rotation. In Tyrannical, they just don't do it because there is no benefit to them. They know they can clear higher keys in Fortified anyways, so no reason. So maybe this is going to be different for 99.99% of the rest of the player base, where this doesn't really apply to them. And that is not true either, because the participation in Tyrannical weeks is still very low, even in +15 to +20 range, even in +10 to +15 range. People just don't like to do Tyrannical. And this can be because of a combination of things. When I ask you, which are your least favorite affixes, you know, once you exclude Tyrannical and Fortified, which are there every time, the rest of the affixes, which are the ones you can't stand? The majority of the player base is going to answer you. The first major ones are going to be Bolstering and Necrotic. After Bolstering and Necrotic, you start having a little bit of a spread in different flavors, like healers liking Grievous less, or melee DPS liking Spiteful less, for example. Maybe some others liking Inspiring less. Now, Bolstering and Necrotic are both affixes that are only available during Tyrannical weeks. So not only Tyrannical is more annoying than Bolstering, but it also has bad combination of affixes. And some of this is basically up to Blizzard. There is no real logical way around this. For example, why is Volcanic never available in Tyrannical weeks? Why is Sanguine never available in Tyrannical weeks, but only in Fortified? Because some of these answers can be logical, like Bolstering is too powerful to pair together with Fortified, so we just leave it with Tyrannical. Or Necrotic is too powerful to pair together with Fortified, so we have to leave it with Tyrannical. Same can be said for Raging. You don't want to enrage Fortified keys, but the problem is that when some of these affixes are so much more oppressive than the rest, it creates an issue. When I started talking about Mythic Plus before this expansion, I was praising the changes that Blizzard brought from BFA. Unless you are completely in denial and you just want to complain about the expansion because it makes you feel better, you have to point out that Blizzard has severely increased the quality of the affixes and in the way they work. They removed something like teaming, which was another one of those awful affixes together with bolstering. They removed skittish, which was very annoying. And then they also fixed many of the problematic affixes. This is possibly why so many people now seem to have more problems with bolstering and necrotic. Maybe if you were playing BFA before all of the nerfs, you had way more issues with something like bursting. You had way more issues with something like quaking. And you had way more issues with something like Grievous. But now they have limited most of them, you know. Sanguine despawns every 20 seconds. They made bursting scale based on max health and no longer based on the key level, so you no longer just die if you get 4 stacks. And also they made it dispellable. They made Grievous have a limited fixed number of stacks, which you can clear with single target heals, rather than having to top the HP of the injured player. They fixed explosive. They made it easier to take down and to target. They made it also less punishing to fuck up quaking. Now you no longer take damage unless you are clipping your quaking with someone else's. So all of these affixes were made easier or better, whichever way you want to look at it. Not really when it comes to bolstering, not really when it comes to necrotic, which is why probably now people are seeing them as much more oppressive than before. Basically before they were hiding in the midst of other shit, so you were complaining about those as a whole, and then Blizzard removed some of them, nerfed some of the others, so now bolstering and necrotic are all that's left. Now, what could be the solutions to this? The solutions to this problem to get people to play different weeks, because another thing that has been pointed out to me, which is also true, is that this creates an imbalance every week. You know, one week is going to be a push week, the other week is going to be a AFK week. For example, it's very fitting that right now we have bolstering and necrotic when just a few weeks ago we had sanguine and quaking, right? It is very different. Fortified sanguine and quaking versus tyrannical bolstering and necrotic. Some people can see this as a positive, because they say, oh, that's great. I don't want to play Mythic Plus every week. I don't want to spend 10 hours a day playing Mythic Plus every week. So having, you know, 1 week where I know I can spend some time in Mythic Plus, and then the week after a little bit less, and then 2 weeks after not at all because the affix combination is awful. On the other hand, though, there is the problem of the heavier pressure that you have during those weeks to push your keys. You have heard this term, you have heard this from me as well. Hey guys, this is a good week. It's time to push, you know, push for your goals, you know, plus 15s or 18s or 20s or whatever. This is the right week. So you have this sort of necessity, this drive to do higher keys because you know this is a good week, right? This is week 5. It's Fortified, Sanguine, and Quaking. I have to start getting all of the keys to 18 or to 19 or to get to 16 or 18 or 2000 Raider IO score before this week ends, because after this week is Tyrannical, Raging, and Explosive, and nobody's gonna do higher keys anyways, so I need to get my score in now. So it creates this sort of burnout feeling, burnout sentiment every few other weeks, whenever the week is right for your pushing. So the simplest answer people have given to this type of issue, I'm sure you have read and heard this before, is get rid of Fortified / get rid of Tyrannical. Together, just make them go away. I think Blizzard is very fond of the idea of alternating weekly the power of the key, which also looks good. I agree to this type of different variation, weekly variation. The problem is, of course, that the actual execution of this variation is creating a massive imbalance. If we were in a situation where tyrannical keys were the easy keys and fortified keys were the hard keys, I would have the same problem. It's not that I have a problem with tyrannical per se, a problem with doing bosses or having bosses be the hard part of a dungeon. I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a problem if the two different affixes you have to split the weeks in are unbalanced one against the other. Some people actually might not even be okay with that because they just don't want to have boss fights be the hard part of a dungeon. They want the trash to be the hard part of a dungeon every time. Even if that were the case, even if that were the issue, then removing both affixes, removing both tyrannical and fortified at the same time, would then spawn a different problem, which Blizzard would have then to fix, which is the normal affixes. Because right now, people have problems, as mentioned, with things like bolstering, with things like necrotic, etc., etc. If the affixes are gone, it means bolstering can happen every week, necrotic can happen every week, grievous can happen every week. So the question is, tyrannical is gone for good, fortified is gone for good, but you get twice as many necrotics, twice as many bolsterings in your keys every week. Are you okay with that? The other possible solution to this is to simply remove the fixed affix number 1, so remove fortified and tyrannical, and add another one of the normal affixes. So instead of having a Fortified, Bursting, and Volcanic week, you're going to have a Bolstering, Bursting, and Volcanic week. Instead of having, this is going to be fun, instead of having a Tyrannical Bolstering and Necrotic week, you're going to have a Storming, Bolstering, and Necrotic week. Or maybe something like a Sanguine, Inspiring, and Necrotic week. So you remove the main affix and you replace it with one of the minor ones. That, I think, would be the most sensible one, to get rid of the weekly annoyance of having to deal with bosses being harder and then trash being harder. I also thought Blizzard was a little bit lazy with Tyrannical. I think because Tyrannical affects only one enemy during the encounter, during the fight most of the time, Blizzard could have treated this like if this was Mythic raid difficulty, i.e. put an extra mechanic, put an extra ability, do something like that, rather than just saying the bosses just take 1 minute longer and do twice as much damage forehead. They could have actually added some extra flavor to the fight. You know, like the windows for you to move in between the gore chop hooks are narrower, and there is one extra small add in the gore chop boss fight. The boss has the same HP, the boss does the same damage, there is no more Tyrannical, but the fight is a little bit harder a different way. That could be a different affix which wouldn't frustrate people as much. Because as long as you do the mechanic correctly, as long as you handle the mechanics properly, the boss dies in exactly the same time as before, which has been the major complaint of Tyrannical. Not just at the very highest keys that some mechanics become straight up one-shots, but also because it's annoying having to deal with a boss for 3 minutes, for 2.5 minutes, to the point where healers start running out of mana, or tanks and healers start running out of cooldowns to deal with these very empowered mechanics. So maybe now, if you just put the onus on the players to not fuck up a mechanic, and if they do, the boss dies just as fast, maybe people are going to be okay with it. Either way, considering this growing issue, I don't think Blizzard can hold on keeping Tyrannical as it is for much longer. We have even gotten the announcement that in 9.1 we are going to get Blizzard's own version of Raider.io implemented officially into the game, which means now stats, official stats about the participation during Tyrannical weeks are going to be in the game as well, not just on a third party. So Blizzard will be forced to admit, they will be forced to see, based on their own interface and their own reports, that nobody wants to play Tyrannical compared to Fortified. So something has to be done in that regard. People complained about too many world quests, people complained about the AP grind in world quests and Blizzard took them away. People complained about Titan Forging and Blizzard took it away. People complained about multiple things about Azerite armor, and eventually Blizzard went step by step to making it less annoying. So we should expect, optimistically speaking, a good change to come for Tyrannical as well. Some might say, well, all those changes you just mentioned took months, if not years, like Titan Forging. You know, it's not something that's going to happen over time. True, but it's not that Tyrannical was introduced in Shadowlands. Tyrannical has been going on for quite a few years, and people have been complaining about Tyrannical for quite a few years as well. So the time seems ripe for some Tyrannical changes. At this point, considering they haven't announced anything related to some sort of major overhaul to Mythic Plus, it's very unlikely it's going to happen for 9.1. I do hope, however, that 9.1 is going to be the turning point. Maybe we're going to get another lighter nerf to Tyrannical for 9.1 in preparation for 9.2, which is going to rework in some way, hopefully, the affix as a whole. Now, with this pointless rambling about Tyrannical being done, it is time to leave ourselves. As I am standing in the ashes of Troy, it is time to leave ourselves for the weekend. I hope you have a good Saturday. I'm not having a good Saturday here because it's cold and it's raining. It's shit outside, but aside from this, see you guys tomorrow, very likely. I'm not going to tell you to subscribe. This video honestly wasn't worth it. You should probably wait to subscribe on an actually good video, not this one. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, yes, we still don't know what is going to replace Prideful. I'm still pointing this out, again.